From Relay FM, this is Upgrade, episode 503 for March 11th, 2024. This episode is brought to you by Factor and Delete Me. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Why wouldn't I be?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're recording this an hour earlier than usual, and that because of the cruel tyranny of time, and I couldn't be more excited.
It's not really an hour. It's like, it depends on how you look at time, right? Like, because for you, it's the same time. It's actually an hour earlier for me, but you've lost an hour.
But I've lost an hour, and I can't find it anywhere. Yeah.
I hope you find it.
Boo. Thanks.
I have a Snell Talk question for you that comes from Christian, who wants to know, what is your strategy with the face detection feature of photos? Do you only tag close friends and family, or do you give a name to anyone it detects?
Christian, neither of those. Neither of those. I do not only tag close friends and family, nor do I give a name to everyone it detects. I give a name to anyone whose name I know off the top of my head, so I know them well enough to label them. Which actually, there's a lot of pictures of little kids from my kids' school things, and they don't get tagged unless it's very obviously like a friend my kids had for a long time, in which case I will mark them. But like, for example, and famous people, sometimes I've been inconsistent with famous people because I just found I'm looking at my photos library here. Hey, there's Seth Green. He's in my photos library.
That's
because he was at the space shuttle launch that I went to. So I could tag. Okay, I'm going to tag Seth Green. There he is. Now he's tagged.
Seth Green.
I recognize Seth Green, and now he's in there. Well, I think I have Sal, who y'all know. I've got him in there. I think I have Steve Jobs and Tim Cook in my people.
Okay.
Because I have pictures of Steve Jobs and Tim Cook. But mostly it's friends and family and kids' friends and stuff like that. And occasionally, but like if it's like there are lots of random faces that I have not done anything with. I just leave them in there, and that's just like. But I'm saying, like, I named my daughter's kindergarten teacher. You know, there. As I scroll through, there are some that are named, but mostly not. Mostly not.
Yeah, okay. I think you fall closer to the second category, where I am in the first category, where like I only put names to people I truly really care about in my life. And so like there are people in the add people section where I'm not going to put them in, because for me it's like, whose photos do I really want to look back over? So yeah, okay. And I actually also did find out in preparing for this, I didn't know that it was called People and Pets now, because it used to be called Faces, but now it's called People
That
and
was
Pets.
just this version last fall, and in fact, as I just put it into our Discord, I have pets there, and including not my own pets, Romeo, the adorable friend of the show, who is occasionally walking across the rooftop next to me as I record. He has his own entry where I've snapped various shots of Romeo doing his thing, adventuring around my neighborhood.
I have two pets in mind, my brother's dog and a friend's dog. I wonder, actually, I don't know the answer to this. If you don't tag pets, is it just say people?
I don't think so. I think it's renamed to People and Pets. Regardless. If you have no photos of animals at all in your photo library,
hey, who knows?
I don't know what happens then.
If anybody does know, please let us know. Write in over at upgradefeedback.com. If you have no animals, does it say just people? Or maybe I'll say just the first person, write that in. If you don't think you're the first person, don't write in, because otherwise I'll be digging through a lot of follow-up.
Or just don't write in.
Or just don't write in at all. Thank you so much to Christian for sending that question. If you would like to help us open an episode of the show, just send in a Snell Talk question by going to upgradefeedback.com. It can be about anything you like, and you'll help us open an episode. Couple of items of follow-up. We are recording the day after the Oscars. Did you watch the Oscars, Jason?
I did. I watched the whole thing.
And Apple didn't win any.
Apple won 0, even though Killers of the Flower Moon was up for a lot, and that's an Apple movie.
Yep.
Apparently, they ran a big campaign, spent a lot of money. No Oscars. I think Lily Gladstone was their best chance, and she was one of the favorites for the Best Actress award. But
yeah.
It was always going to be. It sounded like kind of a toss up, between her and Emma Stone, and Emma Stone won that one. So none for Marty. and Marty's movie, and none for Tim and company. But it happens. They can just hold Coda tighter to their heart.
Yep. It's the same for Netflix too, right? They didn't win anything with Maestro. I know that was their big bet was Maestro, and they didn't win on that either. I did what I always do. I watched a bunch of clips this morning. So I watched the monologue, which I enjoyed. But I especially, my very favorite thing, and I recommend everybody watches this, Ryan Gosling just going all out with his performance of I'm Just Ken, which is the musical number from Barbie. This man is an absolute treasure. The amount of effort he put into this from a performance perspective, I was very impressed, and it's so much fun. It's great.
It's great. It's so fantastic. Good. It's the high point of the whole show.
Yeah.
And I say that as somebody who didn't really love his performance in Barbie.
Oh,
but
really?
I didn't really like it. I thought he was I thought he was outshined charisma-wise by other Kens, and I was like, I don't know. Don't put Simu Liu so close to Ryan Gosling. But this is amazing. It's great. And my other high point of the whole thing was when Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger came out, and you thought they were going to do a twins joke, and they're like, well, you know why we're here. It's because we both lost to Batman. And then they cut to, and they're like, there he is. And it's Michael Keaton in the audience, and he's giving him the steely glare of Batman, and he holds it the whole bit. They keep cutting back to him. He's still giving him the steely glare and some nods and some like, I'm going to get you's hand gestures. And it's just, that made me laugh so much. I was like, so it's like, yes, it's Batman, including the great line, how'd he get you? He's like, well, he found my one weakness. Heat? No. Love.
Yeah,
I would say, he just threw me out. He just threw me out a window. That was great.
Like this was a
boom.
pretty good Oscar, right?
Bang.
Like for this kind of stuff. Like the John Cena bit was very funny to me.
John Cena bit was good. Yeah, they were mostly good bits. There was one. Even the presenter bits were pretty good. I actually liked the. They had 5 former winners come out and speak directly to the 5 nominees in the acting categories. I thought that was really good. There was one intro that was really groan-worthy and bad, where there was like a whole banter back and forth. I forget what it was even now, and it was just the worst. It was just unwatchable. But like other than that one, it did really well. So I think they did a good job. I enjoyed. I thought it was a pretty good pretty good show. Yeah. Oh yeah. John Mulaney doing his whole getting off track with Field of Dreams plot thread questions instead of introducing the category. Also very funny, and John Mulaney is just great. So
there are rumors about this, and I hope it's true, that Mulaney might be the next Oscars host, or like do it after Kimmel, because he did the Governor's Ball, which is the one, or the Governor's something. It's not the ball. There's like a pre-Oscars thing.
Like
he hosted that.
So he's great. Kimmel is perfect for that job. I was reminded again. He's perfect for that job. Yeah, some of his jokes were silly and some of his jokes were dad jokes, but he's trying to like set a mood, take it a little light, but while also understanding that this is important for the nominees. ABC does the Oscars. He's a talk show host on ABC, so it actually is a perfect fit. But I think he's very good at the job. Yeah. So if he doesn't want to do anymore, I think, sure. I mean, John Mulaney is hilarious and would be a very interesting choice. But also, in my mind, Kimmel and this year's producers could just keep doing it, because
it was really good.
They did a good job. Sorry, Apple. And my favorite movie, the movie that I walked out of and I thought, yep, that's it. That's the best movie I saw all year. That's probably Best Picture. That happened. So Oppenheimer won them all.
Like, I have a point but I could just go back to the Kimmel part. The one part of it I didn't like. I did not like the jokes about Robert Downey Jr. Like I didn't think that they were good, and I feel like we should have passed these kinds of jokes in 2024.
I liked it up to a point, and I thought it went on too long. Yeah. I think viewing it from a Hollywood perspective of that he was unemployable, and then he's come all the way back to this. But then again, he did that and better in his thank you speech.
It was way better, right? I think it would have been better to lean on the unemployable than to make drug jokes. That was not. I didn't find that.
Yeah, well. They started to riff on it, and it was a bit. Like I said, I think it went on too far. I think that there was a little jab to be made about, like, can you believe it? And then you move on, and it dwelt on it. Yeah, there were a few bits like that where I was like, but that's in the grand scheme of things. pretty good for. I mean, I've seen some Oscar shows that were like death, and this was not that. So,
but then
that was
about Oppenheimer, like we were watching it this morning, and Eddie turned to me, and she was like, "I just think it's great that the best picture is a movie we actually saw and enjoyed." Which is like, it's so like,
amazing.
I feel like it's a rare thing. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like in the most recent, like for a long time, it's like we've watched the best picture after it won best picture because it won best picture. But like, it's
Sure.
rare that like there was the movie that I chose to see because I wanted to see it ended up being the best picture. So
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
DMA Today time. Everybody's
today.
favorite segment. This is actually
Oh.
DMA related today. It's not just
Uh-huh.
European adjacent. So over the course of about 3 days last week, Apple pulled and reinstated Epic's developer account in Sweden again. So this I'm going to try and abridge all of this. It started with an exchange of emails between Phil Schiller and Tim Sweeney about getting assertions that Epic would follow the rules again and not like break rules like they did last time. Then Apple removed Epic's account again, in part because of public criticisms that Sweeney posted on X about Apple's response to the DMA, which is a wild thing for Phil Schiller to put in writing. Like, just like, I don't know what he's doing. Then the EU Commission, I think quite rightly, started asking questions about this. Then Apple reinstated them again. This is a stupid, petty mess to add on top of all of the other stupid messes that they're trying to deal with right now. This is absolutely superfluous, unnecessary, benefited nobody. I do not know why this happened.
Yeah, it was after I would say, basically a PR own goal of them putting down in their little letter about how they essentially view the App Store as a gift to everybody else, and that Spotify built a whole big successful business on Apple giving it to them for free, which at the time, I think I said this last week, I thought, well, doesn't that make you look kind of dumb that was your business model that you stuck with? But also it just gets to the whole idea of Apple's attitude toward other people being involved in their platforms as being that Apple creates the value and they sort of suck the value away, which is not true. It's much more symbiotic than they would believe. But I think this shows just how rooted this mindset is, which is, and also, I got to say, a little bit baffling. And this is the thing is, I thought when I saw that letter from Phil Schiller basically saying, hey, Tim, reassure me you're not going to break the rules again. And his response was, I absolutely reassure you we will not break the rules again, and I will provide anything you want in writing to say that. The result was then that Apple then banned them and said they did it because they were mean to Apple. They dared to criticize Apple publicly. And it's like, well, wait a second. Fealty to Apple is not in the App Store rules, right?
Yes.
Like omerta, right? Like silence and do not talk about Apple and your relationship with Apple is not in the App Store rules, nor would it be legal for it to be there, especially in Europe. And so for them to do that, it shows you how petty and vindictive people at Apple can be. And it's a bad look when you're an incredibly powerful company. It's understandable to a certain extent when you're fighting for your life, which is, I think, why that attitude got ingrained in Apple. It was in the early Steve Jobs return era, and they were fighting for their lives. But I will say, also, I think it's just a Steve Jobs trait that has transferred to the company. He's always felt like he did great works, and everybody else made money off of it, and he felt like they were all just kind of leeching off of his greatness. And I just, bottom line, I've seen it. It happened in the relationship with Macworld and Macworld Expo. It's just a fact. And then I see it here and I think, oh yeah. And let's be clear. I'm just going to be honest. Look, I've worked with a lot of great people at Apple over the years. But I've seen this firsthand that if you do stuff Apple doesn't like, they won't say so necessarily, but they'll punish you. Like they'll forget you on the next round of whatever, of review units or whatever. Like it has happened to me multiple times, to people I know multiple times. And in this, I was getting the flashbacks, which is it's like, oh, we're going to, Phil Schiller assures Sweeney that if he gives him gives him his word, basically, they'll let them back in. probably knowing that the European Commission wants them to let them back in. And Sweeney, who is not a compliant guy, right? I find him unpleasant, and he has a real attitude. And his response to Phil is like, "Yes, Phil, anything. I assure you, and we will provide anything you want." And then, they're also doing their public publicity campaign against Apple's policies. And that's what gets you kicked out, is daring to speak your dissent to the powerful gatekeeper. Well, that's certainly not going to play well in the regulatory environment where they're trying to shut down powerful gatekeepers.
Yeah.
But I found the whole thing telling and offensive. And I feel like Apple's relationship with regulators and developers about the App Store needs a reset. And while Phil fixed a lot of things that were wrong with the App Store when he came back. Because remember, Eddie was in charge of this, and I think didn't really care about it. And Phil Schiller came in, took it over, and if you think relationships with Apple and developers are bad now, you should have seen it back then. The number of arbitrary rejections and some of the rules, like a lot of things changed for the better. At this point, though, when I look at stuff like this, I feel like there needs to be some new blood in this relationship. Like almost politically, you need to sort of say, no, we're going to put somebody new in charge of this stuff, and they're going to be able to sort of like say, okay, we're going to reset and we're going to change the rules a little bit, and it's not going to be like it was, because this is so poisonous that I'm not sure how.
This is just bad.
I'm not sure how Phil Schiller can represent Apple in this stuff. And that's not to say that he hasn't done some good stuff and isn't a really smart guy. But I feel like this is this can't continue like this. This is
it's different people for different phases, right? Eddie was good for getting it set up. Phil has been good for like building it up to this powerhouse that it is and giving more options to developers for how they make money and this kind of stuff. But maybe there is a new mindset needed for the regulation era of the App Store.
Yes,
because
Apple's
quite frankly, like it's a long email that Phil wrote to Tim, but essentially it boils down to the fact that you broke the rules in the past. And your criticism is why we're not letting you in. And so really what it means is it's the criticism.
It's the criticism.
They reinstated the account knowing full well what they'd done in the past. So the only thing that had changed is Tim Sweeney was tweeting about it. And that is an absolutely unacceptable reason to deny anyone to be in the App Store, let alone one of the biggest game makers in the world. Probably the biggest game maker in the world, which should be on the platform.
Why do you think I have anonymous people who do the Apple report card every year? Honestly, this is the thing: is if you want things out of Apple, I mean, it's not necessarily if I'm on the record criticizing Apple, Apple's going to pull me from the App Store, my perfectly fine app. But it does mean now I'm not going to get help with my app, or now I'm not going to get my app featured in the App Store, or whatever. Now my icon is never going to appear on a slide at WWDC. It's petty stuff like that absolutely happens. So that's the problem here, and that's why I think there needs to be a reset. And I don't know what it's going to take. What's it going to take? Is this what it's going to take? Is it a $2 billion fine that it's going to take? Is it going to be a future fine that's even larger from the EC? That is what it's going to take.
The overall company turnover.
Right.
Those are the fines that are on the line for the DMA.
So I don't know what it's going to take, but and I know we've talked about this a lot in the past, but now there's even more teeth to it. Apple's not playing the game it thinks it's playing. It's not playing the game it was playing 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And yet it's acting like it is. It's acting like it's an upstart that's just trying to make it and figuring things out, and it's like it's 2009. And it's not. It's 2024. You're a giant. You're making huge amounts of money and acting in a way that is that is imperious and dangerous and arrogant and threatening to all of those who are not as powerful as you, who you hold sway over, which is everybody. And again, just to be clear about this, the whole DMA and the whole EC thing, the whole idea there, the concept behind it is that there are certain gatekeepers so powerful that they exert an undue amount of power over everybody. And so it's bad for businesses and consumers. Nothing reinforces that than trying to rule by fear, which is effectively what Apple has been and continues to do.
But
and
there's
no better example than this.
I would actually
literally
say
do not criticize us or we will make your business break.
This is
That's it.
the best example. Like, I can't recall ever seeing in writing an Apple executive telling a developer, we are not going to allow you in the App Store because you were mean.
Yeah.
And it is
because you disagree with us about our business.
Yes.
And you said it out loud. You can disagree with us all you like as long as you never tell anybody and act like you like it. That's
wild.
The policy.
Of all the times to do this. That's why I made that comment about writing it down. The fact that this is written down is like, have you learned nothing?
But I just want to spell this out again, though, just to say this is entirely consistent. Anyone who wants to tell me that this is an aberration and it's because it's Tim Sweeney and all of that, and that Apple doesn't normally act this way, talk to someone who knows better. Because talk to a developer who's had a run-in with Apple. Talk to somebody in the press who's had a run-in with Apple. This is how Apple has operated for more than a decade, for at least 15 years, probably more like 20 years, 25 years. I don't know. Pretty close to as long as I've been doing this. They play hardball. And they're, like I said, it was never fun, but they are so powerful now. And this is the result. Is this? And it's not necessary. It is not necessary. I firmly believe that Apple can compete on its own merits. And that's the part that really bugs me about all of this. And I don't know if it's just why should we change the thing that we've done that's been so successful, whether there's some arrogance attached to that. I mean, I think there is. But I think that there must be an underlying fear going on here as well, because I don't think Apple needs to play like this to win. But they feel like right? It's like if you let it be a more fair playground, more fair playing field, what do you think is going to happen? I think Apple would do well, but I guess their attitude is, why find out? And it's just the worst. Why find out? Why if we own the refs?
Why bother?
If we own the refs, I mean, we've got a good team. We've got a really good team. We probably got the best team, but we also own the refs and the stadium and the field. So why should we even risk it, right? We've got to buy. This is a win. The Washington Generals might show up, but that's going to be it. We are going to own it. And that's the part that drives me crazy, is that I think that they can, not only do I think that they could succeed on the merits, it would actually force them to make an effort in some places maybe where they don't make an effort, and that would make it better for developers and better for users. But instead we're left with this sort of naked bullying that's happening, and it's outrageous. And I hope, and again, I don't like Epic particularly, and I don't like Tim Sweeney particularly, but boy, he managed to get some real clarity about Apple's behavior toward developers with this.
And I will just, hopefully this is going to be the last point. We can move on. But look, we clearly both really care about this, right? And I think, but for me, I feel like I'm seeing a lot online of, anti-Europe sentiment about this whole thing happening. But for me, this is why it's happening. Because without the European Commission, no one would have changed this decision. If this was a decision that before the DMA, that was the end of this, right? Phil Schiller sends this email to Tim Sweeney, done. And because that was what they decided.
Like the last 15, literally, what you're describing is the last 15 years, where if you get on Apple's bad side, if you don't do what they want, you're out. That's it.
And they
there's no judge.
Changed this decision because the European Commission told them to.
Yeah.
And so they did it. Yep. So this is why we need it. Someone has to change this.
Look,
and
there are aspects. I think that there are reasonable criticisms of governments trying to get results through legislation that don't necessarily get the results that they want. But I think this is a really good example of what happens when oversight is added to a process where there was none. In very simple terms, there was no oversight, and now there is actual oversight. And that's the
Yep.
only reason that this whole thing happened, and that Epic Sweden has its account back.
Yep. And like this is, I would prefer for it not to be a government too, but we've been asking for years for Apple to do something about this, and they've decided not to.
We've talked about this a lot. We live in an era, we were talking about this in terms of Tim Cook and China at one point, right? Like we live in an era where when I was a kid, I used to read science fiction about the future. Whoa, the future where like corporations were more powerful than governments. Well, we live in the present where corporations are more powerful than most world governments and as powerful as many other world governments. And this is a case where like, who is going to solve this issue anywhere? And the answer is like, the entire European Union can take on Apple. Like that's what it takes. That's what it takes. Maybe, South Korea a little bit, the Netherlands a little bit. It takes government actors. And I'm not saying that governments are the best use of this, but like who else is there who is as powerful and can make these companies do what they want? There's nobody else. Yep. They are so powerful, and they have such a stronghold on parts of our world that it's necessary. We have another item in DMA Today, by the way, but I think it is all of the same thing, which is criticism of some of Apple's policies that leads to changes in policies that I'm skeptical would ever have been made otherwise. Because again, there's a hammer now with the EC.
Because I guess it is worth noting, I should have mentioned this at the top, the DMA is now in effect. So
yes,
in between the last two episodes.
Happy DMA Day to all.
It's happened now.
To celebrate.
So this is where, and this is why I think the Epic thing could be changed, because well, now there are the rules. The rules are in place, and so everybody has to get in line. Apple, before releasing 17.4, and because the DMA was going into effect at 17.4, they made some tweaks to the new business terms that developers can opt into. So this is everything about the core technology fee and all that kind of stuff. It's the new business terms. So they made 3 changes. Previously, if you wanted to opt in with any app that an entire business would own, it would opt in every associated developer account you may have in your business. But you can now do this on a per account business, not a corporation business. So if you had like some large company and it had multiple developer accounts or multiple apps, if you did app A, apps B and C would also need to go into the new business terms. But now you don't need to do that. You can do it on a per account basis. You are now allowed to switch back from the new business terms to the old ones one time. There was previously, if you go to the new business terms, there's no coming back.
No turning
now
back,
you can come back one time, which realistically means you can go back and forward technically any amount of times you want, right? Like we thought, there's clearly some kind of like technical reason for this. No, if you can come back, this means this is just what Apple wants you to do, but you're allowed to go there, and if you've made a big mistake, you can go back to the old 70-30 terms. And there's new eligibility criteria for app marketplaces. You can provide the letter of the letter of credit where you do like the 1 million
euro.
Yeah. There is now a second way that you can do this. So if you can't provide the line of credit, you can apply to be an app marketplace if you have been, quote, a developer in good standing for more than 2 years and have an app that has had more than 1 million installs in a year in the European Union. These are the new terms. No changes on the core technology fee, though. So nothing's been adjusted there.
This might affect the developer of Alt Store, and I would imagine SetApp as well.
It would be helpful for them, right? That they may now not have to provide the line of credit. However, if those are 2 apps that we know had already said they were doing it, so they must have been able to get that. But now maybe they don't need to.
Although again, it may help them out there. And I do wonder if this is somebody going to the EC or whether this is feedback to Apple or how exactly this pathway works to get sort of this stuff. But because it could very well be that there's feedback from developers who are like, but what about this scenario? And Apple's like, oh yeah, okay, all right.
I could imagine that there is a developer that Apple would quite like to have a app marketplace, or like it would be beneficial to them if they had one, but they can't get the
or the associated developer account thing is big too, right? Because it used to be that it was everywhere, and now it's sort of like it could be in a sub account. I actually wonder what this means for something like Facebook, right? Like, could you end up with Facebook Europe having a Facebook app store that's just for Facebook Europe, that's separate from the blue Facebook account and all of
Mm-hmm.
those, and that it would be Facebook Europe would be under the terms for their new app store, but they wouldn't be paying per install for the Blue app that was in the app store but was coming from a different Facebook corporate account. I don't know.
Those are things in theory. In practice,
Who knows?
depends on the
Who
emails
knows?
you get.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Eating better doesn't have to be hard. In fact, it can be super easy with Factor because they make delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. There's so much to love about Factor. You can fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals that are ready to heat and eat whenever you are because they take just 2 minutes to be ready. You can get pancakes, smoothies, and more. You can discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day like breakfast and midday bites. Factor meals are ready to heat and eat. There's no prepping, cooking, or cleanup needed, and it's flexible for your schedule too. You can get as much or as little as you need by choosing how many meals you want per week. Plus, you can pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. It's the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, premium options with no cooking required, and it's less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. Jason, I'm sure that these Factor meals, these are very still in hot demand in the Snell house for lunchtime.
Yeah, well, we haven't gotten a box in a little while, but the last time we got a box, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, that was the story, is that Lauren goes to work every day, unlike me, and she needs lunch every day. I mean, I do too, but I have a whole refrigerator of food that I own. And so she would just take the meals away because they passed her test. We've gotten a few boxes from Factor. And I mean, I really don't think there's a better, like we get podcast stuff, right? And some of it's like, well, that's nice, dear. And the Factor meals were like, I want that, I want that, I want that, give me that, give me that, give me that. And so I had like one of them, I think. Like she took them all. So don't listen to me, listen to Lauren. They taste good. They don't taste like weird microwave, and like the ones with chicken, where Lauren has specifically said to me, I do not like reheating chicken in the microwave. But guess what? The Factor meal she took had chicken and she reheated them and they were great because I've had them too. And they are really, really good. The ingredients are quality. It's not like you're getting this like weird TV dinner of salty stuff that it doesn't look quite right, and like it's just not like that. It is remarkable. I can't say this enough. How good the ingredients are, and you don't realize how low your expectations are for a cold microwavable lunch until you have Factor, and you're like, oh, it turns out the bar was lower than I thought because this
helps
is
you see in color,
good.
You know? It's all black and white, and then.
Like you set it low and you're like, it's edible. I didn't die, and then you have a Factor meal and you're like, oh, those were not any good, were they? They weren't. They were very bad. So it'll ruin you for other meals.
That's fine because you can get 50% off.
Factor is available. Yeah, that's right.
Factormeals.com/upgrade50 and the code upgrade50 and you'll get 50% off. That is the code upgrade50 at factormeals.com/upgrade50 and you'll get yourself 50% off. Our thanks to Factor for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. It's time for the Betails. Vision OS, I should say. Vision OS 1.1. is now available and brings with it. This is the first major update to Vision OS since it was released. And it comes with it, I guess the headlining feature is new personas. Have you set up a new persona for yourself?
I have. I set up a new persona in 1.1. It looks better. It looks better. It looks more like me. It looks a little bit better. I can't really even quantify it other than to say I think the expressions. Also, they have the new capture. There's a new accessibility capture, which I used, which allows you to capture your face without holding it up. You can put it on an eye level surface, which is really nice because then you're capturing me while I'm gripping a thing in front of my face.
Yeah.
And I feel like my facial expressions and my arms and like everything is a little more relaxed when I'm not holding that thing and trying to get it to point right at me. So yeah, better capture and better capture process.
Yeah, I had to do mine like 3 times though, because the first 2 times I did it, my eyes were looking in different directions, which that's not a thing that I have. but that was happening. But I fixed it. What I would say, and I think I've seen this in mine and in others too, the skin tones seem warmer. I think that is like a key difference that I'm seeing.
I think it was better too. I think
it's better.
the variation on the face of the skin tone was better. And they say that among the things that's better is skin tone and makeup too. I think that they're maybe doing a little more attentiveness to some details on faces that maybe that got a pass in the 1.0 personas.
My mouse still doesn't move though. That's not been.
They did not fix the mouse thing. So
fixed.
Anybody who's rolling this out in the enterprise, which I guess is happening, there's MDM now, so you can these can be managed devices. A bunch of stuff that they're like that's in the iPhone and the iPad that they're like, nope, not for 1.0, nope. And so like that and the iMessage contact key verification is in there now.
There's something that they have not added that is driving me mad. No profiles in Safari. That's still not
no
been
profiles
added.
in Safari.
So
right?
I can't get my tabs. My tabs.
You can't get your tabs.
Are hidden away from me in my other
It's
profiles.
not good.
I find it. I have already filed feedback
weird.
on that. I was a good boy.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten that.
It's weird. They're syncing up features, but not all the features have made it, which is kind of funny. I wonder if they're like, how do we do that interface? And anyway, because the tabs are kind of weird in Safari anyway.
Yeah.
Mac Virtual Display is supposedly improved. I haven't really noticed, but I've heard people say that it is more stable and clearer than it was, which is nice. Captive Wi-Fi networks.
Safari feels snappier, right? Is the
yeah. I'm sure it's clearer now. Captive Wi-Fi networks. So if you're in a hotel or something, or an office building somewhere, and you have to log in and
that happened to
agree
me.
to their terms,
and I reported that to Apple, where I think I said this in the show, where I couldn't when I was trying to do the setup. I couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi network because I needed to do the capture portal. But then my wonderful wife, Adina, was able to convince the hotel to give me their direct Wi-Fi.
Right.
That was how I got
and that's how you got in.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. The way the context there, you talked about the Wi-Fi and then your helpful wife, Adina, and I almost read that as Wi-Fi.
My Wi-Fi Adina. Yep.
Wi-Fi Adina.
Yeah, Wi-Fi Adina.
Yeah, we'll just run it right in there. Amazing.
And those environments
virtual
still
keyboard
say coming soon, which I love.
Yeah.
I love that that's...
Yeah, they haven't
soon
taken
is
that
not
out.
yet. Not soon.
Virtual keyboard is supposed to be better. I haven't seen that it's better. It's still awful. And you can delete apps from the home view now. Yay!
Apple's apps.
Yay! Apple.
Apple's
yeah,
apps.
You can take Apple's apps out.
I
and
immediately
be like,
got rid of Mail. Goodbye, Mail. I don't want you.
I use Mail. That's one of the ones I use, which is kind of weird.
I use Spark. Goodbye, Mail.
Yeah, but anyway, it's nice to see that there's an update, that it actually has some things in it. I don't know how many more of these are in the line before they just are entirely focused on 2.0, but I would hope that they're going to keep going with the things that are like the real pain points to get us through. Because again, 2.0, while we might see a beta of it in June, will not ship until September. And I think leaving this thing out even at 1.1 until September for people who are not brave enough. I mean, there is an argument that if you're brave enough to be on the Vision Pro, you can be brave enough to be on the developer beta, but I don't think that's fair. I think you need to keep pushing the 1.0 features forward a little bit further too.
I agree.
If you're Apple.
One of the things that I mentioned previously is because the window management is a problem. Like if the device turns off, which my device loves to turn off like every day, you lose your windows. And something I was hoping to get was, I could maybe make a shortcut to at least open the apps that I use a lot, and then I can move them where I want them. But the open app shortcut action would just open an app and then close it, and then open the next app and then close it. Federico found that has now been fixed. So the open app shortcut works as you would imagine, where it will just open a bunch of apps and stack them on top of each other, but then you can move them around. So now you could build a shortcut to open your favorite apps, and then you could just move them where you need them to be. That is it is at least an improvement that they fixed that. And
I mean, clearly everybody who has written about or talked about Vision OS has talked about how window management is, I would say it's a work in progress, but that's not fair because it's not. It's like there needs to be some. Because right now, window management is literally, there are windows. You can move them around. You can open them and close them. Good luck. Which is okay as a start. But yes, it would be really nice if you could save a workspace. You could save a set of windows. I get it. Have you been in this position where you've lost a window? You know the app is running, but you can't find the window. And you can hold the crown down to bring it to the front, but it brings all all of them to
All
the
of them.
front.
And it embarrasses
And then you have to
everything up.
relay out all of your things. There's no like, can I find that app and bring it here?
Because what I find
there's-
funny with that too is like there are some apps that support multiple windows, but you can't like open a new window if you can't see the current one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's I've also run into with one app. I ran into a situation where it was one of these time battery widget apps where I could set it, and then I could never get back to the screen. I think they did an update to fix it, but like I could never get back to the screen where you set it because the screen where you set it was the opening window, but once it had a window open, it remembered that was the clock and the battery count, and you could never get back to the setup screen. And I was like, 1.0 OS, here we are, beta apps, 1.0 OS, it's fine. But it all needs to get better. I'm not expecting like a new interface model in 1.x, right? I'm not. But there are some things like at least the Open App Shortcut does what you want it to do. It would be nice if some of those coming soon environments actually came soon.
It's
that would be
still
great.
Soon, but not yet.
But not what are they waiting for? What I want my beach. Missives from the sun are fine, but that's a reference to an Upgrade Plus episode. Missives from the sun that are crepuscular and out in the distance in Joshua Tree are great. But like, I want my beach. I want my beach. Bring me the beach.
I want to be Ken. All right, I want to work as Ken.
That's there you go. That's in the dream house. Yeah, let's do it.
Rumor roundup time. Saddle up, partner.
Yeehaw. So many segments today. Wow.
We're a very
so many segments.
Look, we're a segment
Are we
show.
reacting to the death of Upshift where we're like, we have to run into the arms of our other segments
there
now
was
that Upshift
a
is gone?
different version of today's show that brought Upshift back, but I got
Oh, no.
because there was
Okay.
that big Bloomberg article, right? And I was thinking about talking about it, but then decided I didn't want to talk about it anymore. So that
We did
didn't
it.
Make it.
We did it. It's in the
Yeah.
ground. We did it.
But yes, look, we're a very segment focused show. I think that's part of the joy of Upgrade. I'm sure some people don't, but I love it. As of today's recording, there are still no OLED iPad Pros. It was rumored that they would come this month. There have been differing rumors. Some people saying that it would happen last week, this week. Mark Gurman is saying later on in the month. So
Yeah,
we are now on iPad Pro Watch over
I
here
guess
for
so.
the next couple
Yeah,
of weeks.
I guess we
Where,
are.
I mean, I was checking the Apple Newsroom on the hour every hour for 3 hours today because, as I said to Jason before we started recording, I didn't prep half of this show until like 20 minutes, this is like an hour before we started because I didn't want to throw away work, which I've done before. So I will now be doing that every Monday in case OLED iPad Pros appear. Oof. I've got a few Ming-Chi Kuo reports for you today.
Okay,
Kuo's
great.
been busy. Ming-Chi Kuo is reporting that Apple has cancelled its plans for a micro LED screen. Micro LED? Micro LED?
Micro LED
screen in the Apple Watch Ultra for, quote, the foreseeable future due to costs being too high to be economically viable. It appears from Kuo's reporting that this is actually the case for all micro LED projects from Apple. As of right now, they can't seem to make the technology work for them and be cost effective, but they hope to return to it at some point. As a reminder, because I had to look this up again today, micro LED tends to be better than OLED in brightness, color, and contrast. So it's like a step past OLED.
I think this follows a report that a supplier of micro LED had announced that they had lost a major supply or a major contract.
Yep, that was the report, and then
Ming-Chi Kuo rolls in and goes, "Yeah, that was Apple."
And Kuo also added that like he had the understanding that there are people at Apple that got laid off who were working on micro LED.
Yeah. I mean, this is honestly, it's a speculative thing, right? Where you're like, I think this could beat OLED, and that we could take this, and this could be our new technology. And then you go down the road a few years, and you say, no, it's not. Right? That's going to happen. You investigate stuff, it doesn't all pan out, and it sounds like this just didn't pan out, or didn't, to use a slightly different metaphor, pencil out, where they looked at the cost and they said this doesn't make sense to do this. So, yeah.
At some point, they will get back to it. It makes sense,
Maybe.
right? Like it's an advancement technology, but it doesn't look like now is going to be the time that they get it done. So moving on, Quo also has a couple of reports about the Vision Pro. First off, that he expects Apple will not make any significant hardware upgrades until at least 2027 for the Vision Pro. He expects a modification of the current model in late 2025 or early 2026, but its focus would be on reducing manufacturing cost and production efficiency. It may not be a public revision at all unless they make a price cut. So they may change the way they make the thing to make it more cost effective, but it's not like Vision Pro with an M3 in it or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be more like Rev B, right?
And really, you wouldn't know unless they were like, "Hey, the Vision Pro is 2,500 now, or it's 3,000, or whatever."
We didn't do this. It's a little too early for the draft of the ages, but I wonder what chip will be in the next hardware, actual hardware revision, not a stealth revision of the Vision Pro. Is it going to be like the M5, M6? I mean, it's got an M2 in it now. But if it's not until 2027,
it would be an M3, and so you maybe would say M3 until 2025. So then maybe M7,
M6, maybe. I don't think it's on. Yeah. Is it going to be every year for the M series? Maybe. M6, M7. I mean, it's just going to be interesting. If this is true, you're going to have a Vision Pro running the M2 replaced by a Vision Pro running the M567. It's a long way to go. It's all I'm saying.
We're gonna find out. Yeah, you know what though? Like, but we're gonna talk about this later on. Less of an impact, maybe now.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I think one of the reasons, by the way, that's okay, is I think there are a bunch of things that Apple wants to bring to the M series that they already put in the R1 coprocessor.
Yeah.
That there's stuff that's like, oh, this will be better at this, and it's like, yeah, we had to build a whole chip for that.
We did it already,
and now we can put it in here.
Yeah.
So I think there's some of that will that will be the case. I do wonder though if they, I mean, maybe they had that discussion about like, could we slide an M4 in here in 2026 or an M3, or are we going to keep it at the M2? But I've been expecting for a while now that Vision Pro is just going to be what it's going to be for a while, right? This is not a quick iterate product because it's so far out in the future in terms of what's in it. It's so sort of unreal already.
It could be one of those things where they're not even currently pushing it as far as it can be pushed, right? And so, like, there are efficiencies that they could make within the software, for example, to make it run better. And, like, it's a very powerful machine. Maybe for what it's doing, we don't know. But we'll find out by 2026 and see how it's running at that point.
Yeah.
Quote also reports that Apple is still on track to launch the Vision Pro outside of the US before WWDC. Quote said that U.S. sales have slowed down significantly currently, but that Apple have sold between 200 to 250,000 units, which outperformed their estimate of 150 to 200,000 in this period.
Right.
It's expected that other English-speaking nations will see the Vision Pro first because that's just the easiest to do, but Mac Rumors is reporting that Apple is currently working on localizing Vision OS into French, German, Italian, and Spanish.
Right.
So there are your next places. You'll probably see the UK, Australia,
Canada,
and then the rest. Mac Rumors is reporting via TrendForce that server manufacturer Supermicro is, quote, aggressively expanding its capability to try and secure an order from Apple to assist with their upcoming AI needs. It's expected Apple may be ordering around 20,000 servers this year for iOS 18, looking to spend over $4 billion. I include this. I mean, it doesn't really say, this is Supermicro trying to do it, but the server industry is expecting Apple will be making some kind of order. This, I feel like, kind of answers the question of it's not all going to be on device.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure. There's a lot of processing. Yeah. It's definitely, I think they're going to put as much on device as they can, but you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff that just benefits dramatically from it being in the cloud.
And that's what I would want to see as a hybrid model, because if they're going to do it all on device, they won't be able to compete. But I want there to be a split, and this is an indication, at least, that there will be that split, which I think is important if Apple really wants to make a good run at this. There needs to be some stuff that's done on the web. So there you go.
Supermicro, the company mentioned in that Bloomberg Big Hack story. That
I was thinking about. It, but I
where'd that go there. What happened there? All right.
Here's an interesting one. According to Reuters, Apple is hiring Olivia Allaire Dalton Deputy Assistant to the U.S. President and White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary. Dalton is expected to be taking a senior communications role at Apple.
Maybe Apple needs somebody who knows how to communicate with governments.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know what? I didn't consider that.
Maybe.
But yes, maybe that's what this hire
Could
is
it
for.
be?
Wow.
Could she be leading their efforts to communicate on the government and regulatory side of the business, maybe, as a senior communications person who could send better emails to people like Tim Sweeney?
Maybe.
I don't know.
This could be for like external, but also maybe Apple is preparing for these fights in America too, which I do feel like is going to happen. Dalton has worked for Joe Biden for 20 years, apparently. So
okay.
So you got to expect this person knows some people.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to say now that means Tim Cook. You can stay CEO for another 20 years. It's fine.
20 more years. And according to Business Insider, Apple is also hiring Joseph Cady, who's an advertising executive from NBC Universal, to join a team working on global ad sales at Apple TV Plus. These reports would seem to indicate Apple is working potentially on an ads tier for TV Plus.
I wrote a story on Macworld last year. Thanks to my, downstream conversations and all of that, and seeing how the way that this works, that it was inevitable that Apple would put ads on a tier of Apple TV Plus. Inevitable. Literally everybody else is doing it, including companies that said they would never. Like Disney did it. Netflix did it. Like Amazon did it. Amazon was the last where it's like, well, maybe because it's an ecosystem play, maybe. Nope. Amazon put ads on there. Now, I'm not sure what this means in terms of Apple TV Plus being like, are they going to make everybody who's currently on Apple TV Plus pay more for an ad-free version?
Which is what Amazon did.
Or are they going to make a bunch of Apple content available for free or for some smaller price or tied into other Apple services but with ads? Mm-hmm. But the ad, what for the shorthand for people who are our listeners who hate ads, I will say is an analysis of the businesses of streaming have largely found that you make more money per user from an ad tier than from a no ad tier, which is why all the no ad tiers are getting their prices raised, because Netflix discovered that at their old price tiers, they made more money from the people watching ads than they did from the people who didn't and were paying more, which is bad news for people who pay more like me to not watch ads, because all of that's more expensive now because it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that you'd be making less money from your premium subscribers. Mm-hmm. So, and if you lose them, you'll probably figure you'll lose them to the ad tier, where you're making more money anyway. Yep. So I think Apple can't let this go by. They can't. I think one of Apple's struggles is that TV Plus is a largely invisible thing. When you talk to people out there, like it is a very small service, and it's had some successes like Ted Lasso, but it is small, and that this might be a way for them to get that content out there to a much larger audience and then upsell them on the paid product if they made this free or really cheap.
They need to do it. I talk about this a lot, but my favorite podcast, The Town, which is about Hollywood, there is basically everybody that comes on that show seems to say some variation of it's good content, but nobody's watching it. Like Apple needs the viewership is very low for TV Plus stuff, and except for Ted Lasso. So they need to find a way to get more people to watch the content. So having a easy to use free tier, like I hear people like in my life talk about it a lot, where it's like I reference the TV Plus thing, like I watched Ted Lasso but then canceled it, and so maybe I'll come back to it later on. Like people dip in, dip out, but and
it's too bad. It's also too bad, right? Because those of us who have it and have seen, like, it's got a lot of really great stuff. Like its batting average is very good. There's a lot of really great stuff. Like if somebody came to me and said, I have never done Apple TV Plus and I'm thinking of getting it, what should I watch? I'd be like, oh boy. Like all the seasons of For All Mankind, all the seasons of Ted Lasso, both the Foundation seasons, Silo, Slow Horse. Oh my God, there's so much. Criminal Record.
Stuff. Yep.
There's a lot of stuff there. Sure. Yeah.
I've heard.
You want
I've
fun?
heard that.
Don't think about it too hard.
Is it Masters of Air? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've seen mixed
I've
reviews
heard
of
it's
it, but yeah.
good, so,
I mean, that's for dads who want to see something about World War II. It's great.
Hey, dads need shows too.
It's right there.
You know,
Dads need shows. Dads need shows. Well, they should start with Slow Horses, though. But then, yes, they can watch Masters of Air. There's a lot of good content on TV Plus, but it has a very tiny audience, and that's not great for Apple because they actually do want to have, like, they're paying a lot of money for this content. If there's another way for them to monetize it that will increase the amount of money they make, they should do it. So, I suspect we'll get a free or cheap Apple TV tier with ads, and not the one that we're all on now. And if they do that, I'll be very sad. And I think that's a bad decision, right? Because I think they're struggling to get people to pay for Apple TV as it is.
Mm-hmm. This episode is brought to you by Delete Me. Have you ever wondered how much of your personal data is on the internet? It's uncomfortable to think about your private information being out there, especially because there are data brokers who make their business selling people's data. But we all have the right to stay private and protect our privacy. Great, we have that right. This is where Delete Me comes in, because Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal information from the largest people search databases on the web, in the process helping prevent potential ID theft, doxing, phishing scams, and so much more. It's so simple to sign up. You provide Delete Me with exactly the information that you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me sends you regular, personalized privacy reports showing what information they found, where they found it, and what they removed. And it isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always out there in your corner working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. I implore you to give this a try. Like, I was shocked at how many data brokers there were that had information. Like, Delete Me sends you these reports. Mine was like 6 pages long of just like all of these brokers. Like, they have this about you and this about you and this about you. And then the best part is that then it was just this column of like Delete Me saying, we got rid of that, we got rid of that, we got rid of that. We're in the process here. 20 more days and that will be gone for you. We're going to check on it. I've been really impressed, and I love getting those Delete Me reports now because I know that there's more information that I don't want taken away. Like, this is the thing. I told Delete Me, like, this is the information about me that I don't want on the internet, namely my email addresses. Like, I don't want people selling it. I get so much junk email, and now I have Delete Me going out there and removing that for me. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now, with a special discount for listeners of this show, get 20% off your Delete Me plan. You go to joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and use the promo code upgrade20 at checkout. That's the only way to get 20% off. Go to joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and enter the promo code upgrade20 at checkout. That is joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and the promo code upgrade20. Our thanks to Delete Me for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. So you have published your M3 MacBook Air review.
I have.
And I wanted to talk about a couple of things with you.
Sure.
Really, does it feel any different to the M2 MacBook Air?
No, it's functionally identical.
Yeah.
I think if you're, I mean, it's incrementally faster on multi-core. Like, I can do the number. I did the numbers.
Yep.
It's incrementally faster on multi-core, 17% or something. It's good. It's a nice update. But so the GPUs are better. The ray tracing, like if you're playing games that have ray tracing, that is going to make a huge difference.
I do love to trace those rays.
So. You got to trace the rays if you want to chase the rays.
Mm-hmm. Man, dude.
But yeah, I mean, I had somebody ask me this on social media. It was like, oh, but does it actually feel? Do you sit down with it and go, whoa? And like, I have an M2 Midnight MacBook Air, and I have an M3 review unit Midnight MacBook Air, and I migrated one to the other, and I was using the M3, and I was like, okay. I mean, it's like, it feels like home. It's the same. Mm-hmm. The point here is, again, no, don't upgrade from the M2 to the M3 unless there's the one feature. There's the one feature that if you want that feature, you should do it. But other than that, M2 is fine. Like, for the M1, it's an interesting argument. I think the M1 Air is still great and fine. But, you could, if you're going to hand it down, like for me, I think about the M3, and I think the only way I would buy an M3 Air is if I do a hand-me-down, right? If I take the M2 or Lauren's M1 and I give that to, let's say, Jamie, so that she can do more video work for Upgrade as our social media expert. That I might do, but I'm not gonna, other than a roll down, like the M1 is great. Like the M1 Air is great. So it's really still honestly about people who are on Intel and who are like, I can't go. And in fact, that ties into the one like surprising new feature of the M3 Air, which is that the ability to drive two external displays with the lid closed, which I know some people who are on Intel, that's what they wanted, is the run two external displays, maybe with the lid open. Sorry, you can't do that. But with the lid closed, I mean, two displays is the limit of the base M chips. It's been that way. There are good reasons for it. It would add size and cost to the chip, and it's not what they're solving for. If you want to drive three displays, you should get a better chip than that. That's just bottom line, and I'm okay with that choice on Apple's part. It was always frustrating that you could run your MacBook Air and lid closed and still not drive a second display. It was very frustrating. So I'm glad that they've addressed that. And I did haul the Studio B studio display out and put it on my desk here with my other studio display, and I put it in like a V-shape configuration, so I had display all around me. And then I texted Casey and I said, I don't know how you live like this, because it's just not for me. It's too many things, too many pixels, too many K, too many places.
But
it worked
here at my recording desk. I have one display in portrait where I have audio hijack and zoom. Like I have all of the apps that are recording on that display.
Yes, right.
So it's always visible. No matter what I'm looking, I can always look over and be like, yes, I am recording. So that's what I have it for.
That's nice. Yeah, I just, it's never really been for me, but I work that way. There's some quirks. One of them can be scaled, and the other one like scaled up to like more space, and the other one really can't. And I wonder if that's just a function of the capability of like the it can do one at 5K and one at 6K, and so it may be like that's too many pixels, because it has to put the scaled mode. It's probably like drawing a larger one and then scaling it down, and it can't. Something is going on there that surprised me a little, but like I was able to run it at sort of standard display mode. With those two displays, and you don't need more space. You've got more space. You've got two monitors now. How much space do you need, you monsters? I mean, Casey's response when I said I don't know how you live like this is to send a picture of his three displays, and I was like, God, just go away. But yeah, I was able to do it, and it was great. So if you're that person who has, especially if you've been hanging out on Intel and being like, I can't give up my multiple displays, I hope this will satisfy you, because this is. I think it's pretty good. I never really I tried to use an open laptop display with an external display for a while, and I never really liked it because it was like, I had it on like a riser, and it was tilted, and it's still like the keyboard is there. It still felt weird. Anyway, if you're that person, that's a great reason to get it. Also, can I tell my story about how I spent a lot of money and about 4 hours of the one day I had to write the article on one paragraph of my review? Can I do that?
Can we pause just for 1 second?
Okay.
I just have one.
All right.
I have a couple of things I wanted to ask you about with the display thing.
All right.
Is there anything that you are aware of for why they could not enable this on the M2 MacBook Air?
So there's some stuff going around about how they did make a change in the M2 that allowed the system to. So in the M1, the system, it was hardwired essentially into the display, and this story, the ATP talked about it a lot last week. The story is basically that even in the Mac Mini on M1, you could only output one through Thunderbolt and one through HDMI. So there's like a hardwired port. They changed the design in M2 apparently enough that the Mac Mini could output both on Thunderbolt. They didn't have to go through the HDMI. But the M2 laptops didn't ever pick up that feature. So the question is, the sort of conspiracy question is, could they do a firmware update for the M2 to enable this same feature?
Yeah.
We know they're doing it.
Because they're doing it with the M3.
We know that they're doing that with a MacBook Pro.
Because it would seem that they did not build into the M3 the ability for this to happen, because otherwise that MacBook Pro would have had that feature, right? Like if it was specifically built in.
Except they did sort of build into the M2 this other aspect of it. Yeah. But they didn't enable it, and then they didn't enable it on the M3 MacBook Pro, but they did then enable it and say that they will backport it to the M3 MacBook Pro. I don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are two scenarios that I just want to say for all the people out there who are like, conspiracy theorists. I'm going to lay them both out there. You decide, how's Princess Kate doing? I don't know.
Oh, please
Here it
don't
is.
bring this to my show. I can't handle this. The people in
There's
my life.
There's a
it's
tech angle.
driving me mad.
Photos were edited, Mike. Photos were edited. Anyway, here are the two scenarios. Scenario one is, yes, Apple built this feature into their chip in M2 and yet nefariously withheld it for the entire run of that chip because reasons. But now they're enabling it because reasons. And, okay. I think the more reasonable suggestion, because they never enabled it in the M2, even though they put it there, and yet they've done it for the M3. I think the more reasonable suggestion is that they did that work in the M2 either to push this down the line to a point where in a future model they would be comfortable putting it in and turning it on, or they thought they had fixed it for the MacBook Air, and then they tried it, and there was something that didn't work well. Maybe like you could do it, but maybe it was not up to their standards, inconsistent, buggy, or whatever, and they're like, shut it down. We're just not going to do it for this generation. Better luck next time. Let's fix it for M3. I think I can't, like, if it worked fine in M2, they would have done this when they rolled out M2, and they didn't. So I think it's more likely that it didn't work fine, or it was never intended to work on the MacBook Air, but they were working toward where they would get with the M3. It is, I will admit, utterly baffling that they shipped the MacBook Pro with M3 with this limitation that they could have addressed and didn't until now or later when the firmware update comes out for it. That's weird, right? But sometimes a mother just wants to edit her kids' faces so that they're smiling on Mother's Day. It happens.
I will leave this show. The show will end. I will walk away from this podcast right now.
I'm just giving tidbits. People who don't understand it will be baffled. People who get it will get it. And it's just, I'm just saying there are conspiracy theories out there, and some of them are probably not worth thinking about, is what I'm saying.
All right. So thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Partly in a way that I wish you wouldn't have, but let's talk about what cost you some money and time.
Okay. These things have Wi-Fi 6E. I have, like, Eero 6s that don't support Wi-Fi 6E. And I thought to myself, should I get faster Wi-Fi in my house? Like, it's been a little while since I bought new Eeros. Should I do it? Like, faster Wi-Fi is nice, although most of the computers won't take advantage of it, but eventually they will. Okay. So I bought a new Eero Max 7, which the box came. I'm like, this is a very large box for one Eero.
They're very big.
Huge.
They're very big.
It's huge. Yeah. It's giant. It's like the size of a dinner plate.
There were multiple reasons
think
why
Eeros
I didn't
as little
go
tiny guys.
With like the 6C stuff when I was buying new stuff when we moved into our house last year. Partly it was cost because it is much more expensive right now.
Yes.
But the other was they're so much bigger. And it's like one of these things where at some point they will get smaller and cheaper, but that point is not now.
Yeah. So I decided to do it. I did it. And the reason, and it's fine. It's for my work. I set up the M3 MacBook Air, and it got basically the same speed as my Ethernet. And I was like, wow, okay, that's great, right? Like, for me, yeah, faster file transfer inside the house is good. But, like, the number one thing is if I can get the same up and down to the world as I do on my Ethernet-connected Mac Studio, we're living large here. It was like gigabit up and down. That's what I want. Great. Doesn't always work that way. It was inconsistent, but like I was able to get it to work that way. And my MacBook Air M2, while pretty speedy, was not as speedy. So I'm like, okay, all right, worth it. I can talk about it. I wrote a paragraph about it. The problem is that I changed my network configuration, Mike. You know what happens then? Everything breaks. So my internet connection broke. It turns out that the way my fiber router was set up is it was forwarding all of the traffic to the MAC address of the old Eero that I had replaced.
Oh, God.
So I had to connect a MacBook Air via an Ethernet dongle directly to the the fiber router and change it to point. And I was like, what is happening? Why is it not working? Why is it not working? I could get internet out, but I couldn't get any traffic back in. What is happening here? Turns out, I figured it out. I set that to the new router, and it didn't work. So then I rebooted them both. Rebooted the fiber router, rebooted the Eero. Didn't work. Rebooted, unplugged everything, including the other Eero. Put it all back in. Didn't work. Reset the Eero. Remapped all of my network settings for all of the like port forwarding and reservations and stuff. Didn't work. And I was so frustrated, and I was like, okay, and so I unplugged everything again, left it for 5 minutes, came back, plugged it in, didn't work. I'm like, what is happening? I looked at the router settings. I'm like, I Googled for it, and they're like, do this. And it's like, I did that. That's what I did. I Googled that last time I set this up. Why is it not working? And then I did actually the thing that cured this, the thing that solved it, which is I sent an email to Eero support, and I said, why is it that when I swapped one of your Eeros for the other, all of a sudden I can't get any traffic forwarding? But the moment I sent it, I thought to myself, this isn't the Eero. The Eero's not seeing any traffic. This is coming from the router. The router is still not, even though it's set to forward it, it's still. I reset the router. It still didn't work. I'm like, what is happening? And then I unplugged it and replugged it. 4 hours in. I've rebooted these things so many times. And then I was reminded of the number one thing that I always learn and then always forget about network stuff, which is, you know what solves network stuff, Mike?
What is it?
Time. Because the next time I unplugged them and replugged them, it all worked. And presumably, if I had done nothing other than pointed at the right thing and unplugged them and replugged them a few times over the course of 4 hours, after 4 hours, because something was cached somewhere, even through resets, it would have just started working. So, and Zach is saying fun with like time to live concept, like at least from a network perspective, it shouldn't be, because the time to live was set to be very low. I reset the device that was forwarding to the other device. It didn't matter though. Somewhere in there, in the connection between those two devices, there was a thing that really wanted to forward all the traffic to the wrong place. Mm-hmm. And that just stayed there until suddenly it went, oh, right, this guy. Done, solved. I wasted 4 hours taking screenshots of the Eero app so I'd remember what ports were being remapped to what on my... It didn't matter. I just needed to wait. I just needed to be patient. I need to leave the house for 4 hours. Anyway, that was 4 hours I could have been writing a MacBook Air review that I wasn't. But, the Wi-Fi it's really fast. And I think covers the house better because it's an enormous thing with many different antenna in it, different bands. So I look forward to the day that I do buy a device that has Wi-Fi 6E in it, because it'll be fast. Hooray.
How does the midnight coating hold up to fingerprints now?
Okay, new anodization seal, the same one that's on the Space Black. And Apple's like, aha, it will be better for fingerprints. It will be like, don't worry about the fingerprints. I'm going to be that guy and say, I have 2 Midnight MacBook Airs now, and let me tell you, they both cover with fingerprints. It's fine. They don't bother me, but they're also not invisible. They are present. I wonder if maybe part of it is that the Space Black is lighter than the Midnight. They kept the Midnight shade is exactly the same as it was on the M2. And so I wonder if maybe one of the reasons the Space Black on the MacBook Pro is not so black is because the blacker you make it, the worse the fingerprints look. And so they did the anodization seal on a darker gray, and it doesn't pick up as much. The Midnight MacBook Air, even on the M3, I'm sorry. Like, I might say that it's fainter or something, but really it's not any different. I mean, like, for me, at least, I put fingerprints on it immediately. Wiping them off seemed pretty similar to. Maybe they wipe off a little bit better, but like, I'm struggling to try to give you anything here other than to say, in my experience, if you The only thing preventing you from buying an M2 MacBook Air is that you can't bear the fingerprints on the Midnight MacBook Air. Do not buy the M3 Midnight MacBook Air because it still has fingerprints on it, pretty much the same. Sorry.
I know you spoke about like speed and that kind of stuff a little bit already, but there was something that I kind of really took away from the charts in your piece, which is just that, there are year-over-year improvements with these M series chips, but Apple Silicon really is enforcing the idea that it's kind of like 2 years is what you should be looking at the very soonest before you would want to update.
If you need to really push it, other than like very specific things in certain areas, like there's the video encoding stuff that went on the M2 that wasn't on the M1. So if you're doing things to like Apple's codecs, encoding there is built in a processor block in the M2 that wasn't there in the M1. It was only in the M1 Pro and Max and Ultra. So they're like, it's got a new, I think it's the neural engine that has more cores, or it's the newer neural engine. I mean, there's stuff in there, and the ray tracing is in there, right? There's stuff, but unless you're a very specific use case that requires these kind of updates, even the M1, I mean, if you're pushing your CPUs or your GPUs from an M1, you will get, it's like 30 or 40% faster. I mean, it'll be better. I would argue that most of the people who are in that situation might want to think about like a MacBook Pro because you're pushing it that hard, because the MacBook Air is a fanless laptop that is pretty good for most people, but it's not going to do it for everybody. So I don't know. I would say what I said before, which is coming from Intel, then sure, it's a no-brainer. Coming from the M1, even there, I think, I think the M1 Air is fine. I think it's still fine. So I think Apple Silicon, we've seen 2 revisions now, and I probably wouldn't give a strong buy recommendation to an upgrader coming from M1, even though I like the design. I think the M2 Air design that's now in the M3 is really good. I like the screen. I like the MagSafe. Like, there are lots of reasons, but again, the M1 Air is still a good computer.
Mm-hmm. Did you find the, quote, world's best consumer laptop for AI to be especially good at AI tasks?
I mean, no. Examples that I was given, I mean, like, it's great in the cloud because it just uses the cloud. Yeah. It's got a neural engine. The AI task that I use the most is optimized for GPU and not for neural engine, but it works. It's entirely just, it's no, I think not really any better than the M2 was. It really is just that Apple knows that everybody's talking about AI and AI laptops, and I think Intel is pushing this concept of the AI laptop, and Apple's like, wait a second. And really it's that decision of like, do you hover above the fray, or do you feel like you're getting beaten up about AI, which Apple is, and therefore you're going to say, no. Our laptops do that too. We just haven't talked about it, and so now we're going to talk about it. But as it was, I ran a Whisper transcribe on them, and it was faster, but again, it was absolutely destroyed by a Whisper transcode on a 40 GPU MacBook Pro, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
I will make Apple's argument for them a little bit and just say that, like, because I know a lot of people have been poking fun at this. I poke fun at it now, so I will now argue on the other side too. The majority of tasks that people are doing with AI right now are web-based tasks, and the MacBook Air is thin, light, great battery life.
Yeah,
Safari's great to use. So
fast Wi-Fi.
You can with fast Wi-Fi, right? You can make the argument that for the majority of tasks that people are actually doing with AI, the MacBook Air could well be the best laptop for this.
Sure.
Because I think it's the best laptop
Consumer
for web
laptop.
browsing.
Consumer laptop, right?
Consumer
Which is
laptop.
because the MacBook Pro is, they're basically
and
saying,
consumers are using ChatGPT. Consumers are not putting their own models onto a machine and running.
There are some
tasks.
apps that do it for like photo stuff, and there are some, and there may be more in the future. But yes, I think all of us, close focus Apple people look at this and we kind of laugh at it, but like what they're doing here is, I think Apple has felt like there's a perception that Apple doesn't do AI, which is incorrect, and that they haven't talked about it, and that arguments have been framed around AI for laptops and for computers in general, and that Apple is left out of the argument or is discounted, and they are afraid that when somebody's weighing a purchase of an Apple Silicon laptop versus an Intel laptop, that one of the arguments that's being used against them is, well, this is an AI laptop.
Yeah.
Apple doesn't do AI. And so Apple's basically said, okay, if those are going to be the terms of the debate, so be it. We're now going to talk about AI. So AI has become essentially a check mark on a box, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't not talk about it, even if you check every box. And but for those who don't know, back when there were boxes, the check mark on the box was obvious things. But if you didn't put it there, people would think you didn't support it. And so you ended up with an enormous list of things with check marks next to them because you need to reassure people, yes, it does that. And AI is now a check mark for laptops. So yes, it's in the press release. And does it change the Mac experience at all? No, not at all.
But it also took Apple to actually start using the words. Right?
Yeah.
They were refusing to use the word.
Apple was very much like, this isn't really artificial intelligence. It's more like machine learning, and we prefer that term and all that. And the world says, yeah, but we're calling it AI. So you're like, all right, I guess we're calling it that now. It's just, look, I didn't like the word app. I preferred program or software. And you know what? At some point, you're like, all right, we're doing apps. They're apps now. Yay, apps.
Would a rose by any other name hallucinate so sweetly, Jason, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Does anything remain missing from the MacBook Air for you? What are the things you would like to see Apple address with the MacBook Air that they've yet to?
The webcam is fine. I mean, they're doing a lot of processing, but it's still a 1080 webcam. I would like them to put a higher resolution webcam with a larger field of view and center stage. But they haven't. And I know it's very thin. I get it. But like, I want there to be a better camera up there.
Yep.
I like Touch ID great when I have used Windows laptops. Like I have a Surface Go that, is terrible, but it runs some Windows software. And every time I open it up, it's like, oh, Jason, and it logs me in because it's got face recognition. And I think this dumb old Windows convertible has face recognition, and my Macs don't. And maybe it's bad, and maybe it's not up to Apple standards and all that. But like, I feel like the real reason there's no Face ID on Apple laptops is because they want to engineer the screen part to be so thin that the sensors don't fit in there, and they can't, or more accurately, they can't reuse their sensors from the iPhone and the iPad, and therefore they just don't bother. And there should be Face ID on Mac laptops, and honestly, and on Mac desktops, like or on the Studio Display, right? Like there should be Face ID on the Mac, and there isn't.
I'm just gonna say this. No one's gonna like it, Jason, but I'm gonna say it. All right, you ready? This is gonna be very unpopular, but I'm gonna say it. I would take, to get a better camera and Face ID, I would take a camera bump on a laptop.
Whoa!
I'd take it. I want them that bad. I have camera bumps on my phone, and I'm fine with it. Put a camera bump on the laptop. Give me the features.
Yeah. Good for you.
I will take the bullet.
Yeah.
You can flog me on social media. It's fine.
So you put a list in here, and I actually, this is what I was going to say. So thank you for channeling me, or we're in agreement on this. But the other thing that's out there that you put in here that's absolutely true,
we're on the same wavelength.
Is that we lose track of it, and every now and then we mention it. But I'm just going to say it again. There's a whole conversation that we've had here many, many times before, but it needs to be said again, which is, what would be great, especially when my Wi-Fi was broken, and I was trying to figure out whether things were reachable from the outside or not, and I had to use my iPhone, which was not ideal for setting settings in a web page. Cellular option on laptops is I keep thinking that it feels to me now like they're just trying to put it off until they can integrate cellular into their chips, which it keeps getting kicked down the road. But like, I find cellular in my iPad so useful. And people always say, I'm going to say it here because every time we mention this, people are like, oh, you can just tether. I hate tethering.
Tethering doesn't
It makes my
work.
phone hot. It kills the battery. It's inconsistent. Or you've got a wire attached to another thing. I don't like it. I have a cellular iPad. I'm very happy I have a cellular iPad.
I have to connect to tethering 3 times to get it to work one time. This is this is constant for me, He's like, you connect, it's like, doesn't work. Connect, doesn't work. Connect, oh yeah, it
It's
worked now.
it's a real good enough option, which is like, oh, there's this thing that's kind of quirky and strange, but it exists, and therefore you shouldn't need anything more. And the answer is no. We deserve better.
We deserve
Mac users
better.
deserve better. Mac users deserve to have cellular options on the laptops, just like iPad users have, and get on it. Like, again, like, this should be in there. I'm sorry, it should be in there as an option. And I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear about tethering, and I don't want to hear about, well, they would have to pay a fee. I don't care.
So
they probably have to pay a fee for the iPad too. But like, give me the option. Give me the option of having cellular on a laptop. It would be great. And I know that there's OS things, but they have been making progress on the OS side in controlling data usage by runaway, apps. They're doing more there. And I would also say, you know what? If you're that concerned about data usage, get an unlimited plan. But like, get me the option. Let me have the option of putting a Mac on cellular via some means other than connecting to an external
Apple,
device.
give us
Please.
what we deserve. Sell radios and camera bumps. That's what we deserve, all right? Just give us what we deserve on our laptops. But all in all, M3 MacBook Air, good laptop, right? Good laptop.
Yeah, because the M2 was great, and this is just that, but a little more recent.
If you remember
it's the latest
from the
model
Mac
of the M2.
draft, many people said M2 MacBook Air, best Mac.
I love it, and so this is just that again. And there was a whole there's the discourse going around of like, oh, I miss the wedge design of the MacBook Air.
Time
like
for this discourse, I have no time for it.
I don't either. Like, I mean, sure, people are nostalgic for all sorts of stuff that is in the past and gone, but this is I like this design better.
Like,
it's great.
If you want to keep the design of a 10-year-old laptop, that's great. It still works. Use it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to keep making new ones. You want an old laptop so bad? Use the old laptop. But new laptop, better than old laptop. That's what I say.
I agree.
If you enjoy this show and would like more of this show, there's a very easy way to do it. Go to getupgradeplus.com and you could get ad-free, longer episodes of Upgrade each and every week, along with a ton of other benefits, including hours and hours and hours, tens, maybe even hundreds of hours at this point. Actually, yes, definitely hundreds of hours at this point, of exclusive content for Relay FM members. Crossover shows. We do behind-the-scenes episodes of what we call Backstage. Me and Stephen get together every month to talk about what's going on behind the scenes at Relay FM. We're spending a lot of time right now focusing on the planning of our 10th anniversary live show in London. We're talking about that on Backstage. There's also Spotlight, where Kathy Campbell interviews a Relay FM host every month. You get all of this and so much more if you subscribe to Upgrade Plus by going to getupgradeplus.com. But of course, the main thing is each and every week you get no ads in Upgrade and more content. This week in Upgrade Plus, we're going to talk about the transcriptions feature that has come to Apple Podcasts, our experience with it, our impressions, and what we want Apple to deliver. Go to getupgradeplus.com and you can sign up. You'll be supporting the show and getting some excellent content for yourself. Getupgradeplus.com. It is time for Ask Upgrade Questions. Kevin writes in and says, have either of you tried FaceTime on Apple TV? I tried it for the first time this weekend, and I was blown away by how good the experience with continuity camera was.
I have.
Okay.
I've done Zoom and FaceTime on Apple TV.
Do you do it a lot?
I do it some, although I will say it's a little telling that that we didn't. Last night we did our Zoom with Lauren's family, and we just did it on an iPad sitting on the table instead. There's two reasons for that. One is I didn't want to go get the camera mount and attach it and connect it and do all of those things. And we were doing a bunch of other stuff and watching the Oscars and making dinner. And it was just another thing. And the other thing is sound, honestly, which is I feel like when the audio is coming out of the TV far away and the microphone is on the phone far away, that you end up sort of like shouting and then there's some room echo, and it cannot be as necessarily as good. Now, some of that, I think FaceTime is better at this, and the Zoom, strangely, because Zoom does this all the time for other Zooms, is maybe lacking a little bit there, and maybe it will get better over time. But I found that was a little echoey, and that people were complaining about how we sounded, which is like, that's not acceptable. So it's a work in progress there. I will say, again, Apple or one of its partners who, if Apple doesn't want to do it, sometimes they're like, oh, we'll have Belkin do it or whatever. somebody needs to make a continuity camera, right? Because there's no USB-C on the Apple TV anymore. There's no USB on the Apple TV anymore. They took it off. So you can't just plug in a webcam to it and use that. You have to use continuity camera. So I would like somebody to make a continuity camera that I can leave plugged in, sitting on top of my TV, so that whenever we get a FaceTime while we're watching TV from my daughter, my son, other members of my family, I can just say yes, and boop, it pops up on Apple TV. But now it's like, oh, good, your phone, and move it over here, and like I just don't want to do it. So and we could like use continuity camera like on down on the table and look at the TV, but then we're looking above the camera, which is also weird and not ideal. So my answer is, I think this is a really good feature, and I think Center Stage looks really good with the iPhone camera, and I think it works really well, and I love the angle it gives where you can see us and we're sitting on the couch and it feels like a sci-fi movie, and I like it a lot. But I've had some audio problems, especially with Zoom, and I hate the fact that I have to go through all the trouble of getting it and balancing it, and my phone falls off because I didn't balance it right. And I'm like, I'm going to break my phone trying to set up continuity camera. So I want there to be a continuity camera sold by somebody that I can leave plugged in, sitting on top of my TV. Please.
This isn't what you're asking for, but I just wanted to put it in here because I saw it. I don't know why I find it funny, but I do. The Belkin have an Apple TV, like a TV-focused mount, MagSafe mount thing now, where you can put it on top of the TV or stick it to the wall or whatever. I just find that funny. I don't know why, but it's funny to me. You know, I have not used it, and I had not considered.
I have that mount. I have that mount.
Do you?
It's good.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the Belkin. It's just their mount for TV essentially, right? It's for Apple TV 4K, but like maybe it's a slightly different version of the same mount, but it looks just like the mount that I have that goes on the studio display. I mean,
yes,
it's
but
it's
it can
fine.
Also be stuck to the wall. This one, which is what makes it.
Oh, okay.
Different.
Well, that's nice, I guess. Mounting bracket for the keyhole mounts and mounting bracket added for added stability. That's good. But again, then you got to still put your phone on it, right? Like, correct. And it just sits up there otherwise. And I kind of want there to just be a camera up there. That would be a lot nicer. I don't know. Have you used this at all?
I have not, because I didn't have a way to do it that made sense. Especially with the way that we have things set up. Like, we have our TV mounted to the wall, right? And so, like,
see,
it's just like, how would I even do this? And then it's like, I'm just going to put like the phone or the iPad in front of me. I'll just talk to the iPad that's in front of me, which is I've been doing for years.
Exactly.
And so like I do see the benefit of this product, but there are some weird parts. I'd never even considered the thing about like if it's with your phone and your phone's all the way over there, if you have that kind of living room, which I know you do, you have quite a long living room. How are they hearing you like with the phone? It's a good feature. It is a good feature, but it's not one that I've used.
I think it's only going to get better. I think you got to do a lot of audio processing on the microphone to get it to isolate the voices, which I think that they're doing some of already. Like I said, I think the FaceTime experience actually was better, which leads me to believe that maybe like Apple really tuned this, and Zoom is sort of, they're new on the platform, and I think they're maybe using things that are tuned for other environments, and hopefully they know that, and then that they're working on it. But like, I really like the idea. I would really like to be able to make all of those calls that we do with our kids and Lauren's family in the living room. I'd like to do those all on the TV. I think that would be really nice, because when I've done it, it's really quite pleasant. But it's not all the way there. It just isn't.
Tom says, do you think the iPad Mini would ever get Face ID and the best possible screen available? I translated to this basically, do we ever think Apple would make a Pro version of the iPad Mini?
I don't think so.
I don't think so anymore.
I think the Mini's always it's going to always hover in the mid-range. I think it's always going to be like the small version of the mid-range iPad.
Yes.
And that it's a combination of giving it a decent price for people who are price sensitive and want a smaller one, and a decent, price for people who want a small iPad that is decent specs. So I think it's always going to be the small mid-range iPad is my guess.
It will follow that. So I do expect it will get Face ID at some point in the future. Like, I expect years into the future the iPad Air will get Face ID, like probably, and so then the Mini would probably follow.
And OLED maybe in the
Yeah.
future, and the Mini would get OLED too. But like,
It's a
I
long
feel
way
like
away.
it's always going to be on that kind of iPad Air
Mhm.
level.
Which,
right?
while I would love a all bells and whistles version of the iPad Mini, I don't think that's what this product is. Like, I just don't
Yeah.
think it is that anymore. Because
Agreed.
it's going to be very hard to argue an $800 iPad Mini or whatever it would be.
Right? Yeah.
That's just a hard argument to make.
Yeah.
Ian wants to know, what is your backpack of choice for commuting of a larger than usual technology loadout? I usually need to keep two 16-inch MacBook Pros with me due to work. My word. And most bags aren't very accommodating. I'm expecting neither of us, and I especially know for you, will be able to answer this question specifically, but I do
Indeed.
have a recommendation that I want to make for myself for a larger technology loadout. Like, I don't know if any bag in the world can accommodate two 16-inch MacBook Pros. I would love to know what Ian needs that for as well. But I want to make a recommendation for my kind of traveling bag, which is where I have the most technology. On a daily basis, I've used a bag from Bellroy for years now called the Bellroy Tokyo Tote Pack, which I really love. It's like a tote bag with backpack straps. Great. And I was using for travel the bag that all the nerds use, the Peak Design, right? So that became the nerd bag for a while, the Peak Design everyday backpack. I got frustrated with that bag over time. Like, it has a very specific way that it wants you to use the bag, and I ended up not fitting with that. So I went with a while ago another Bellroy bag, the Bellroy Venture Ready Pack. It's a big bag, and I use this when I travel. And this bag is so big. How big is it, you ask? This bag is so big. You can
How
fit,
big is it?
You can fit the Vision Pro travel case in it horizontally. It's that big. So
you can fit the Vision. Your Vision Pro case. You can fit my Vision Pro case that's cheap.
yeah, I'm talking
horizontally
about
in my backpack.
the
But you're talking about the
big
pillow,
one.
the Apple
big
Pillow.
one. Yes, that can
Ooh.
fit horizontally in this bag, so you can still put more stuff in this bag. I would say you probably could fit two 16-inch laptops in this bag. It would be tight, but you would do it. Yeah, this bag is really, really nicely made. I love Bellroy stuff, and it's basically what I wanted, which was it's got some pockets, but it's got just a very large open space where I can put lots of big stuff in there. So that's what I use. That's what I recommend. I just want to recommend this bag to everyone. I recommended it to our friend _ and he bought it, and he loves it too. So don't just take my word for it. You can take _'s word for it as well.
And I'll just say again, my backpack is a 25-year-old backpack that I loved so much that when it started to fall apart, I contacted the company and they're like, "We don't make that anymore. We'll send you a new one." And I'm like, "But I like this one." And they sent me a new one. It's like, "I don't like this one. I like this old one." So much so that I went on eBay and I found one that was the same, and I bought that. So I'm actually not using the same backpack I've used for 25 years. I'm using another version, someone else's backpack that I've used for 25 years. Our friend James Thompson also has this backpack and still uses it because it's great, but they don't make it anymore. So I can't really recommend it. But I can fit stuff in it. So that's a backpack from the late 90s that has had a Vision Pro in it. So that's pretty cool.
Get a time machine.
Go
That's
back
the
to
way fix it.
1999, go to Brent Haven, say, "I want your computer backpack."
You know what? Computer laptops from 25 years ago probably can fit two 16-inch MacBook Pros in them because laptops were bigger. So
yeah, it's not as well padded as I think modern backpacks are, but yeah, I have fit big laptops in there. You're probably right because the laptops were bigger back then. You probably could fit. So okay, that's my answer then. That's my final answer,
time
Ian.
machine.
Time machine.
If you would like to
eBay.
send in a question that we can answer with the words time machine, go to upgradefeedback.com. You can send us in your feedback, your follow-up, your Ask Upgrade questions, and your Snell Talk questions. I just want to say, as always, Thank you so much to our listeners who send me in so much
Yes.
interesting stuff every week. And I just want to say again, I love so much that people use the form. The form makes my life so much better. I don't want the email. It's terrible to get this stuff on social media. The form is good. Form is good. So
form
thank you
is
to people
good.
that use the form. If you want to find Jason's work online, including his wonderful review of the M3 MacBook Air, go to sixcolors.com. You can hear Jason's shows here on Relay FM and theincomparable.com as well. You can listen to my podcast here on Relay FM. You can find my product work at cortexbrand.com. We're on social media. Jason is at jsnell, JSNELL. I am at imyke, IMYKE. If you want to find the show, it's at Upgrade Relay. You'll find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can watch video clips of the show. We're experimenting with our YouTube channel. Please go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're playing around with some fun stuff there. Thank you to our members, the supporters of Upgrade Plus. Thank you to Delete Me and Factor for their support of this week's episode. But most of all, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Time machine, Mike.
Time machine.
Time machine.